There's this weird phenomenon that whenever a Ubisoft game is about to release, in many cases you immediately know what you can expect. That is, if you have experience with Ubisoft titles, of course. The open world design, mission structure and progression systems, and quite frankly the Ubisoft formula, with an often predictable pattern and repetitive gameplay found in many of the open world games, are in my opinion characteristic for many of their titles. That doesn't mean they're bad games, of course. I'm sure there are many people out there who play Ubisoft games exactly for those reasons. Sometimes you don't want to get into anything new or very complex and innovative. Sometimes you just want to play a traditional Ubisoft game, where most things are already familiar to you and you can easily get into without a steep learning curve and having to check the game's wiki every 20 seconds. But I believe at this point it's time for them to step up their game. Whether they're going to do this by refining and reimagining the already existing formula, or by innovation and trying out something new. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they need to do something to keep up with the recent bangers some studios have put out the past few years. Their biggest upcoming release is the new Avatar game, Frontiers of Pandora. So let's take a look at how it's been holding up so far. Addressing the potential elephant in the room right away. Yes, the graphics have undergone a quite significant downgrade, I would say. But this was to be expected and is unfortunately nothing new in the gaming industry. Not supporting this way of marketing, of course, which could potentially be seen as misleading marketing, since the footage we've seen back then was in fact titled actual in-game footage. But we're not getting into that in this video. The game still looks very good, and with proper hardware, even with the graphical downgrade, is going to be one of the most visually appealing games this year. With that out of the way, let's cover the most important info up front, so you know what we're up against here. Frontiers of Pandora is the upcoming action-adventure game developed by Massive Entertainment, a Ubisoft studio. Ubisoft has hinted at a unique, standalone story, where players will take on the role of a Na'vi, traveling across the western frontier, a part of Pandora not seen in the films, as far as I'm aware. It's important for you to know that because of this, you don't need to have seen any of the movies in order to enjoy this game. Exploration, combat, story missions, and character progression will be core aspects in this experience, and the game is developed in close collaboration with James Cameron's Lightstorm Entertainment to ensure a seamless integration with the Avatar universe. The fact that James Cameron is actually involved here is very good to hear. That all sounds very intriguing, and the game does show potential now that we've got to see and hear more of it. But potential is only potential unless you make use of it. And it being a Ubisoft game and showing clear similarities to other game franchises they created, especially Far Cry, naturally asks for a rather skeptical view. That's why I've picked some positive points and some underwhelming and potentially negative points that I observed so far. Maybe they'll help you get a decent understanding and clear expectations of the game. Let's just start with something positive, shall we? Like most Ubisoft open worlds, this aspect is certainly something that may very well blow us away in terms of size, density and graphical fidelity. The game's world is rendered with an almost ridiculous amount of detail and visually rich environments that are dynamic and densely filled with vibrant, healthy vegetation. The foliage, a key feature of the Avatar universe, I'm sure we can all agree, is impressively lifelike, moving and reacting to player interactions with fluid, natural motions. Now, this thing looks good, even with the graphical downgrade, but one thing I'm personally a bit concerned about is meaningful and rewarding exploration. I don't want to just roam around a gigantic wallpaper that's pretty but doesn't really offer anything interesting besides its beautiful graphics. I want meaningful exploration with environmental storytelling, hidden items and locations, dynamic events and encounters, but please, for the love of God, not as annoying as in Far Cry 5. Interactive and interesting NPCs, and rewards for exploring off the beaten path, whether that is through unique items, secret locations, NPCs or something else. If they can pull this off, then they already succeeded in what is one of the most important aspects. If they are only rewarding our curiosity and urge to explore, with worthless garbage and objectives that feel more like a chore and checklist, rather than an exciting adventure, then I can see this game becoming just another mediocre Ubisoft title that will be forgotten sooner rather than later.
Did you bring the nectar?
When it comes to the game's story, I think dedicated Avatar fans may be in for a real treat here, given the positive involvement of the film's crew and the insistence of approving almost everything story-wise to protect the canon. Normally I prefer an independent development cycle, but in this case I think the involvement can lead to a more authentic experience. Combat is something that really cannot disappoint here in order to ensure a positive experience. Given the game's nature, we will spend a fair bit of time liberating outposts like in Far Cry and all kinds of RDA enemies. So far it looks decent, like it does get the job done, but it also has the first impression of being pretty mundane and unoriginal. I think there's little to see here that we haven't seen in another game. You basically use RDA weapons if you want a destructive and loud approach, and switch to your Navi bows if you prefer a stealthy approach. There are longbows, heavy bows and short bows that have advantages in different situations and can be equipped with special ammo. Combat doesn't need to be revolutionary, but if you're going with a more traditional approach, then please at least nail the sound design and make the weapons feel awesome and satisfying to use. Something I've noticed, RDA machines are too easy to take down, which creates the risk of them just becoming another annoyance and time waster, instead of the actual serious threat they're supposed to be. Another thing I've noticed is that while the world looks gorgeous in a flying mount, the flying itself feels very flat and static. When you're supposed to be going really fast, with your very own ecran, it just doesn't look as exciting and dynamic as, for example, broom flying in Hogwarts Legacy. That game had a lot of issues, but man, did they nail the sense of speed when flying on your broom. Absolutely amazing in my opinion. I really want this to turn out great, especially for all the hardcore Avatar fans out there who are longing for a game like this. But I can't help but feel a bit skeptical about certain aspects. Also the fact that there's already a season pass trailer before the game even launched is a bit weird, and I dare say a pretty bold move. It feels as if it's not additional content, but rather withheld content. If it's already finished to the point that a trailer was necessary, why didn't you include it in the base game? If you're looking for the ultimate Avatar experience with great exploration, story elements and character progression, and a world that makes you feel like you're a part of it, then a pre-order is not justified just yet in my opinion. And we should all wait until more people have the game in their hands. If you're absolutely fine with the Far Cry in blue, which I think is the absolute minimum we can expect here, then I'm sure the game will be a great purchase. If this video was helpful, consider leaving a like. See ya!